for Europe and elsewhere around the world. I thought it was curious that the greatest leniency that the administration showed in the tariffs really was overall with Latin America, which was interesting. In other words, bring the business back to home. We know that Mexico, of course, has regained its status as the largest exporter into the U.S., taking a lot of business away from China over the course of the Biden administration, the prior Trump administration, and let's see what happens now.
John, great to get some time with you. Thanks so much for joining us. John Stoltz was there from Oppenheimer, who's cut his target from 7,100 to about 6,000, but reserved the right to raise it again if things take off to the upside. Less than 10 minutes to go until the opening bell. We'll start the trading day with Matt Miskin, Manulife, John Hancock. This is
The countdown is on. Everything you need to get the edge at the end of the market day.
Big tech earnings kick off later this afternoon.
Gilead is coming out right now. We have take two numbers.
Ja, jeg prøver å liksom få det til å funke da, men
That actually matters a whole lot more.
jeg har ikke helt trykk på at det er helt ennå.
Get ahead of tomorrow's trading with the close. Weekdays on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute geopolitical news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Stephen Engel at the Forbidden City in Beijing, and this is Bloomberg.
Bloomberg has the Fed decision under surveillance with the fastest coverage and exclusive analysis, including Powell's press conference. Nobody covers the Fed like Bloomberg. It's the world's second largest economy with a growing influence in global affairs. Bloomberg The China Show brings you the unmatched expertise you need to keep track of breaking news, in-depth market analysis, and the most influential newsmakers in and around China.
We need to do more to engage the market more.
Yeah, risk on. I think we caught a little sweet spot.
Massive savings right now.
It's already a different game.
Bloomberg The China Show. Weekdays around the world, right here on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Middle East and Africa. Vibrant resources and high-yield investment opportunities abound. Join me on Horizons Middle East and Africa for the stories, newsmakers, and insight from this exciting region. Now weekdays, only on Bloomberg.
Futures are surging right now after Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told CNBC this morning, if we're successful, tariffs would be a melting ice cube. Let's discuss with Matt Miskin. He is co-chief investment strategist over at Manulife, John Hancock. Matt, great to see you in person. So the thing about ice cubes is they get smaller as they melt. So you could make the case that maybe this is a negotiation tactic. That seems to be what traders are doing right now. Do you think that this bounce, though, is sustainable?
Well, the rates rule everything around me line that last time we talked about, cream, actually still holds. And what I struggle with the balance is that the 10-year yield is popping higher. Yeah. And so not only is the 401ks across the country failing lower balances, but now mortgage rates are going up. And that isn't healthy. We need actually a softer Fed tone and one where the 10-year yield...
Softer? You want an even softer Fed tone than we got from Jay Powell on Friday?
Pillow soft.
I think actually he was...
That guy was milquetoast.
He was hawkish, I thought. I mean, he didn't even express any concern about the volatility. All right, so there's a dog and a tail. The dog here is the nearly $150 trillion of consumer net worth across the country between real estate and markets. That is what actually drives economic activity. The economy, GDP, is like 27 trillion. That's the tail. So if stocks continue to do what they're doing, and they're their own worst enemy right now, because the volatility is going to make people more concerned about investing, they think about institutional, risk-adjusted returns, but the wealth effect coming down in that consumer net worth is going to lead to weaker economic activity. And if Powell continues to be hawkish and just holding, I get it, four cuts are in the market right now, that's a lot. But
at the same time as Bill Dudley says, we should expect 5% inflation. Right. Put a pin in that. We're going to hold you over to the next block. And also, if we mention yields again, Shanali's going to bring up the basis point trade. So don't.
The basis trade. I wasn't going to do it. Thank you for that.
So don't encourage her. Matt Miskin is going to stay with us. Ahead of the opening bell, let's get a quick check on futures. We're in the green to the tune of 3 1/3%. This is Bloomberg.
Tanker om markedet i dag. Det ser ganske bullish ut da. Problemet er at rentene begynte å stige i dag, og VIX-indeksen begynner også å stige, så det er sånn der... Jeg vet ikke om det er riktig å gjøre så veldig mye i dag, for det kommer til å åpne opp her nå. Microsoft er opp med 3% der, og Nvidia opp med 6,5%, så det ser jo veldig bullish ut, men rentene begynte å stige nå. Så skal jeg være litt forsiktig, så ikke man kjøper og får den midt i trynet her. I dag så det vel ikke noe... Skal Trump prate der da?
Many times go visit with Steve Jobs to try to get an Apple box to be our box. And we were trying to merge boxes. And of course they have Apple TV and we have our box. Never actually happened. And in one of the meetings he said, well, you should give up because we're going to win that. Well, you should put Wi-Fi in all your boxes. And that's how you'll win. And you should be the best pipe. And he said the best dumb pipe. So I went home, went to our chief technology officer and said, what's Wi-Fi? And today we have the nation's biggest Wi-Fi network. And we have more customers, and 90% of your cell phone usage, 90% is Wi-Fi. Right. And that's because 70% of all the bits going over the internet right now are streaming. And streaming wasn't here 10 years ago. So I sit here and say the most...
Bloomberg brings you breaking news 24 hours a day. Powered by more than 3,000 journalists and analysts in more than 100 bureaus across the globe. Bloomberg Television. Context changes everything.
Bringing you up to the minute.
Jeg mistet plutselig nettet her, jeg nå.
And wherever it happens. I'm Joanna Versace in Davos, Switzerland, and this is Bloomberg.
Tenker om ikke det holder noen gang kjeft. Hvis han går forbi en åpen mic plutselig og stå. Jeg tenker på Donald Trump, ja. Det det da, du aner jo ikke hva han vil si for noe. Men jeg mistet nettet her akkurat nå, så bare følg meg nå på åpning.
S&P futures right now up 3.4%. NASDAQ futures right along with them. You hear the opening bell on the New York Stock Exchange. You've got I believe it's the New York Fire Department, but some sort of firemen, and God, we're really thankful for all that they do. Down on the NASDAQ, you've got WISE, working in support of education, which also sounds like something that we should really be thankful for. But no companies ringing the opening bells in this kind of market turmoil. Katie, what are the stocks that you're watching move at the open?
Yeah, let's get to some company shares right now. We have to start with NVIDIA, leading the Magnificent Seven higher this morning after yesterday displays one of the most violent swings for U.S. stocks in years. Nvidia shares finished about 3.5% higher yesterday, Shonali, amid the fray, and currently higher by about 6.5%.
How about a little more green for you, Katie? Not by much, but Walgreens is up by a little over 1%. People are watching their quarterly profit topping estimates in one of its last earnings as a public company. The firm will not hold an earnings call.
Apple is snapping its biggest three-day drop since 2001. The company reportedly weighing a supply chain shift from China to Italy, India, not Italy. That would be, wow, that would be a real change. But they already make 4/5 of their phones in China. And how fast can that happen? Probably not very. Nonetheless, the shares are up 2.33%. Just the intent is enough to drive them higher. We're back with Matt Miskin, co-chief investment strategist at Manulife, John Hancock. Do you think the companies are going to be able to move their supply chains that quickly? I mean, also, does it matter if it's in China or in Vietnam or in India? Like, Trump wants it here, right?
This would take years to be able to really move those manufacturing plants back to the United States. And then also, there's just not the workers, the labor force to even do it in the United States. This isn't an actual movement that's likely to be able to happen. We think the tariffs are going to be a constant moving negotiation, if you will. But, you know, I don't know if it's a sinking ice cube or not, but what we're seeing more broadly is quality stocks are the worst performers this year. The better your balance sheet, the better your profit margin, the worse off you are.
Ser du ikke bildet nå? Du ser bildet nå, ikke da? Jeg har mistet nettet, skjønner
The United States is on sale. We have seen such a massive sentiment shift. You rewind 3 months ago, the United States was the only place in the world to invest. It was an exceptional market. Now, the sentiment around the United States, the United States is the underdog. And everywhere else is supposedly the better place to be. We like the U.S. on sale here on a relative basis within equities.
So let's look at that sale. Let's pull up what the S&P 500 sectors have been doing so far this year, because you're right, it's pretty bloody. And want to know where your shopping lists get started. You're seeing consumer discretionary down 18%. A lot of that is Tesla. Information technology down, but even energy, retail, financials, real estate. What do you like?
So technology for us is a buy because the quality elements of it. So they've got the best profit margins, best balance sheets, hundreds of billions of dollars of cash just sitting there. They could do buybacks while they wait. They could pay dividends. They could do a lot of things. Then we're insulating that technology sector with low vol. So that's healthcare, that's utilities, that's things people need versus what they want. So it is more of a barbell strategy, if you will, quality and low vol. We're trying to minimize volatility for investors here, and we're also bringing bonds into the portfolio, which have absorbed some of that volatility pretty well for us.
Yeah, you know, yesterday may be excluded, but I hear what you're saying, and I want to talk about the upcoming earnings season. It starts on Friday with the big banks.
Ja, men jeg mistet
I know what
nettet,
you're
da.
saying when it comes to the U.S. is on sale right now. There's a lot of bargains to be found out there, but is that enough to overwhelm what could be a disappointing earnings season? Because you take a look at the stats from Bloomberg Intelligence for all of 2025. They now see profits rising 9.4%, which isn't bad, but that figure was 12.5% at the beginning of the year. So earnings expectations are coming down.
And they're likely need to come down more. That's a great point.
So
People are lowering multiples, right?
So it's
Ja, på overalt, men alt hang seg her. Alt bare nett, alt bare ikke noe oppdatert. Alt bare stod stille.
And then you get the earnings revisions. Analysts have not yet woken up to this new potential regime, and they have not revised down the earnings. So it is likely that comes down from high single digits. We think it's going to be low single digits.
Ja, bare lukk på, se på Discord, ser
so
alt.
that is still coming, but it's all relative. So what earnings are going to hold up the best this year? That's the work you got to do within the equity market. And to us, tech, even though it has sold off, we think is going to hold up better because, again, the margins, the moats, all that good stuff. And then those defensive sectors of what people need versus what they want. And then, you know who doesn't care about earnings? The bond market. Well, the corporate bond market does. But the high quality stuff, they don't mind if it's weaker growth. And we actually are calling for disinflation this year. We think the biggest with basically analyzing these tariffs and everything else going on is the thought that inflation is going to accelerate. We actually think it's going to decelerate over the course of the year. That's going to be beneficial to bonds. Maybe the Fed cuts a little more than expected.
I was just going to say, to underline your expectations or...
Ja, doktor, jeg prøvde på frontbroker i stad, men jeg skjønte ikke noe. Altså, når alt krasjer, så tenkte jeg, nå bare drit dere, så får bare gå der.
So our fair value estimate on the 10 years.
Jeg har så mange skjermer oppe her at det
It's still 30 basis points lower, but
Nå kan jeg gå på frontlokket. Da går jeg på...
If we're in a recession by the end of the year, we think actually the 10-year Kevin.
Nå kan jeg gå på frontlokket.
And that the Fed's going to be cutting more than the 4 times they priced in. We think the 4 times is basically just, hey, inflation is slowing, we're going to kind of